All right, so this is the end of the couples therapy lecture that I was talking about. This is John Gottman, who we've been talking about. These are his 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. He has all sorts of cute names for different things. There's also a video. It's a short YouTube video of John Gottman on Anderson Cooper, and where that you get some video clips that demonstrate criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. But in a nutshell, criticism, and I've already mentioned in the class, that's the thing mostly heterosexual females are most guilty of. But that's when it's just what it says it is. You criticize your partner, you say negative things about your partner to your partner. Contempt is when you start to not even like or respect your partner, and that can be the eye rolling, the mocking, talking in a mocking voice about your partner. Defensiveness is refusal to take even a small part of the blame for your partner's complaints. So your partner says, I wish you would put the toilet seat down, and you say, but I do always, and you're the one who never puts it up. It's the deflecting blame. And stonewalling is, and you'll see an example of this in that video, that's when the partner, they wall off, they literally don't make eye contact. Oftentimes their partner thinks that they're just ignoring them, but what they're usually doing is actually usually their heart rate's quite high when they're doing that, and they're just trying to not make it worse. But these 4 things are all highly predictive of imminent divorce. Particularly, contempt is the worst one. So, getting back to these differences between couples who stay together, which Gottman calls the masters, and couples who don't. The people who stay together, they have better and more efficient relationship repair. They actually make less repair attempts than couples who don't stay together. And the reason is their repair attempts are actually more effective. They're just better at repair. There is no difference in the amount of fighting between the masters couples and the couples who divorce. And I mentioned this in class last time, that emotional bank account, that couples who stay together, they do many more nice things too, which helps ameliorate the effects of the fights and the complaints and the criticism, things like that. So this here, let me get my face out of the way. This is they have this model here, and again, a lot of John Gottman's stuff is kind of cutesy looking or sounding. They call this the sound relationship house. You don't have to memorize this, but I want what these things what they essentially add up to are these three. You can think of a healthy marriage as a stool with 3 legs, and those 3 legs are friendship / love maps. I'll come back to that. Shared meeting and skillful conflict management. And all these things on this sound relationship house, they all map onto one of those 3 chair legs. So friendship and love maps, what is that about? John Gottman says that couples who do well, they forge a friendship with their partner, and you do kind things for a friend. You think of them. When you go to the grocery store, you think, I wonder what so-and-so, if they want me to pick up something for them. You hear a song, you think, oh, so-and-so would like this song. You keep them in your mind. You also know them. You know how they react to things. You know what things anger them. You know some stuff about their childhood. You know what things make them passionate, what things drive them. That is the love map. A love map is a sort of psychological representation of your partner inside of you that you have. Winnicott would say it's like being attuned to your partner. So you know that your partner really, really hates Donald Trump, so you turn off the news as soon as Donald Trump comes on and your partner's walking in the room. So you have a sense of who your partner is, and you try to do nice things for your partner. That's the friendship and the love maps. And I get people in my practice who've been together 10 years, and they don't know each other anymore. When they were first dating, they asked all kinds of questions, and then they stopped. Or their lives changed, or they changed when they had kids. and they can't answer some important questions about who that other person is. Shared meaning, and that is that couples who stay together have some sense of some sense of meaning from their coupleship and maybe from their family. This is who we are about as a couple. We invest in clean energy. We think it's important for our kids to go to college. Couple I was talking to the other day, they want to make sure their kids are well traveled, but you have some sense of the direction you're headed and the things that are valuable to you as a unit. It could be at my age, I'm sort of thinking about retirement, and so me and my significant other talk about our retirement plans and what directions we're trying to go in, what legacies we want to leave behind for our kids. So it somewhat depends on the life stage you're at, but we have some idea of who we are going forward and what we're about. Think of it like a business plan for your couplehood, or for the couple. And then finally, the third one is conflict management, and all successful couples are successfully able to do that thing where they're able to repair conflicts and they're able to reestablish some sort of baseline with their physiological measures. They're able to get theirs and their partner's heart rates and blood pressures back down to normal. So those three things, and basically when I see a couple, I try to determine which of those things need work. And frequently they come in, the first thing that needs work is the conflict management. Maybe they're also not friends and they also don't have shared meaning, but they're fighting so much, and I need to get them to quit doing harm to one another before we can work on the other two things. And so my treatment plan is going to be, which of these three things is this couple working on at this moment? I've got a couple right now who they pretty much got the conflict management under control, and now they're working on the friendship. So some important differences between the Gottman research and previous models. Oops, I can see I've got a problem there. But the Gottman, I mentioned this before, they looked at couples who are happy, not just couples in trouble. And what they do is they teach couples in trouble now how to be like the couples who are happy. They also, in addition to self-report, they added physiological measures and behavioral ratings to their databases. So not only are they asking couples, do you feel like your partner listens to you? Do you like your sex life? But they're also measuring the couple's heart rate and various other measures as they're fighting and as they're not fighting. And they're also coding very, very carefully their body movements and their facial expressions. They also focus on conflict management rather than resolution. So the assumption is that all couples are going to have conflict. They'll have things that they disagree about, and you may never, ever be able to completely solve that. I've got a couple right now who one wants to live in the States and one wants to live in Denmark, and there is no compromise there. They've been living in Denmark for the last 10 years, and so, but they can't go live on an island somewhere between those two places. Some couples, one says, I want 5 kids, one says, I want 1. Or somebody wants 1, somebody wants 2. You can't have 1.5. Somebody's going to win, and you have to figure out how to manage the emotions around that. So they have some assumptions that any two people are going to have differences between them, and how do we keep the two of us calm when we talk about those, relatively calm when we talk about those things. Okay, somehow I just updated this. I just updated this lecture, and apparently I've already had this here to the tripod. I already said that. Another thing that you can do with the Gottman models, I do an assessment with my couples when they first come in to look and see which of these 3 things they need to first start working on. Where are they having a problem, and let's create an intervention. It's a very, very objective, structured model. Okay, some important marriage myths, and you'll need to hear these in order to answer one of those participation questions. There is the myth of quid pro quo. So many people in couples have some ideas about fairness. So I always empty the dishwasher. I always make sure that the car's oil gets changed. My partner, and you never, and I always, and there is a myth, and the myth is that if you look at the happy, successful couples, that they are relatively equal in the work that they do. That's quid pro quo, is it that if I give and I take, and I give a little, you give a little, it's about the same amount. But in actuality, happy couples don't count. They may not even look equal. They may just have a way of, I'm really good at housework, so I'm going to do it. No big deal if my partner doesn't like to do it, or I like to do it. So it isn't necessarily equal, but they don't count, and they find a way to deal or be okay with inequalities. Another important marriage myth is that affairs are the major cause of divorce. That is not true, and actually there's some really interesting research that suggests you can actually predict an affair before it happens, and it's usually a cognitive thing that happens when somebody starts comparing. When somebody starts, everybody looks at other people, everybody gets sexually attracted by other people, but when you start to compare, boy, I might be happier with so-and-so, when you start to make side-by-side comparisons, that's a predictor of actually having an affair. But usually affair, and this is researched, I'm not just saying this because I think it, but affairs happen when in already problematic relationships, people who aren't talking very much, for example. If you want to prevent an affair in your relationship, tell your partner every time you're attracted to somebody. I dare you to do that. It's very hard to do because we get jealous, but it's a way of not keeping those feelings inside. It's a myth that gender differences cause divorce. That's not true either. Another one is that high expectations cause divorce. Actually, what Gottman found is that people with high expectations have better marriages. If you expect that I am going to work on this marriage every day, and I expect my partner to too, you will actually create a better marriage for yourself. They're couples who are happy, they're conscious of the efforts they make, and they really do put their partner and that relationship very high up there. Some things that are true that I just thought I would say here is that some people just aren't good at relationships, and some people who've had particularly troublesome attachments growing up, or people who have trauma backgrounds, unfortunately, and where they have a hard time trusting, they will struggle more in relationships than people who have very stable attachment models inside them. And the other thing I want to say that is true is that this is the thing that I see most with couples who come in, is that you get a couple who's come in and for the last 10 years they haven't had an intimate conversation, and they have separate lives, and they don't do nice things for each other. Maybe they kiss once a day, good night. They have a lot of work to do to start putting positive, constructive things back in their relationship. And they may decide, you know what, I'm just going to cut my losses and start over with somebody else. And I think that's a fair thing to decide. I think for some of these couples, it is such an uphill battle to get back on the footing that's going to make them a good marriage, it's just like, if I eat, I mean, I don't mean this in some sort of shaming way, but if I eat a lot and I don't exercise, and I do that for a whole year or for 10 years, I'm gonna have a lot of catching up to do after that, and I'm gonna have to work that much harder. So there is some truth to that, and some people just don't want to invest the time and would prefer to cut their losses and start over. And I think that's okay, and I try to help people make that decision. Okay, so I'm going to stop this here and continue in another recording, and then we'll be done.